Happy Cinco de Mayo. In this video, we are going to make margaritas. Oh, but these are different margaritas than you're used to. Welcome to Thirsty Thursday. I'm Mark, and this is the Average Me channel. Today, we are going to celebrate with our neighbors to the south with margaritas. But as I said in the intro, these margaritas are different than any margarita that you've probably had. We are going to do a twist on the margarita, and we're going to be doing not one, but two versions of the margarita today. So let's start by looking at the salt rim. We've got one drink here, or one glass rather, and this is all ready to go. It's all salted up. Now, how did I salt this rim? It looks really good, but I use a technique that we talked about in a previous video, and that is to take the rim and I first coat it with a corn syrup, and then that gets so nice and sticky and you put that into the salt. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Mark, doesn't that affect the flavor of the cocktail? You're down tootin' it does. But the drink I'm going to make, the first drink, is going to be the one that's far more removed from a typical margarita. And it's a pretty sweet margarita. So the fact that we have salt with the corn syrup isn't going to have a very detrimental effect. I'll go further to say a lot of rim salt that you see is actually a combination of sugar and salt. So this is going to work just great. I love it when we moisten the rim with the corn syrup because it's so thick and the salt really sticks. The salt doesn't get saturated. It doesn't fall off very easily. So I'm really happy with that. So here's what we're going to start with, and then the second version will be a simplified version. We are going to use a Blanco tequila. We're going to use blue curacao. Why blue curacao? Because the first margarita that I'm making is the Caribbean blue margarita. Then we're going to use some triple sec, simple syrup, and finally, some lime. What's a margarita without lime? Now you see some other things here. You see an orange. I'm going to have to step away in a minute and get a cherry for the garnish. But you know me. I can always make things happen in a snap. So there's my cherry. We're going to be using that for a garnish. And if you have sharp eyes, you might have noticed that something else appeared here as well. And that's what we're going to use to salt rim. That didn't sound good. The other glass. What this is, it's a little gadget that I picked up, and I don't use it often, but it is for salting. So it has several trays attached, and this tray is actually a sponge, and that you would saturate with a liquid, probably a lime juice. This is where we put the salt, and then that can all be closed up into a nice little unit. But what I'm going to do is not use a juice for the rim. I'm sort of going to use a juice for the rim, but I'm going to take the lime, and I'm just going to run a fresh lime around the glass. And so we get some fresh lime juice in there. Now, it makes a really nice salt rim, but the problem with it is that salt comes off a lot easier than the salt we have over here. So we have to make sure that we don't get the two mixed up, the sweet and the salty. All right, so let's get this show on the road. So we're going to start with the less traditional, more complex version, and then we're going to end up, for you purists, with a more traditional version of the margarita, but it's still going to have a little special twist. So, to start things off, actually, why don't we start things off with the lime, since I have the lime right here. We're going to start off with a half a lime, and as you know, a half a lime typically gives us about a half an ounce. So my experience has been that one lime will give you about 1 ounce of lime juice. I might go with just a little more here. I have a couple of little fragments of lime here. So I'm just going to put these in here and squeeze them a little bit just to give me a little more. I'm going to tell you a secret about what happened here. I shot this entire video, and when I was done, I played it back, and the video had absolutely no sound. The whole video. And so this is my second time around. It's actually a different day when I taped the original. Can you imagine that? Now I had to sample 2 different margaritas, and now I have to do that all over again. I work so hard for this channel just so you can enjoy a different cocktail. All right, so we're going to start in this more complex version, the blue, or the Caribbean Blue Margarita, with 2 ounces of the Blanco tequila. Then we are going to use the Blue Curacao. Now, what if we put that cork on a little better? Since the Blue Curacao and the triple sec are orange based, as you can imagine, this is going to have a lot of citrus flavor in it, in addition to being blue in color. So we're going to have 1 ounce of the Blue Curacao. And then we're going to have 1 ounce of the triple sec. And again, they're both orange based. And this is going to be oh so sweet, because we're also going to add 1 ounce of regular simple syrup. And I say this every time that I use simple syrup, because some of you might be joining for just the first time. I make my own simple syrup. It is so easy to make. Simple syrup is merely 1 part sugar, 1 part water. Bring it to a boil so the sugar mixes right in. And I always keep it in the refrigerator, but I don't know that you necessarily have to. All right, so there it is. And now we're going to just shake her up. Oh man, that gets so cold. And that's the whole purpose of shaking, is to get it so cold. So, did you see that when I moved? The salt fell off the rim. Not off this one though. So now we're going to notice we're using the strainer shaker today. Oh, we gotta put some ice in here. What am I thinking? So if you think about this, there is actually a lot of cocktail here. We used 2 ounces, 3, 4, 5, 5.5 ounces. That is a pretty hearty drink. All right, and next up, we are going to garnish this. And like most margaritas, I'm going to put this off to the side here. We're going to garnish this with lime. And we're simply going to use a lime wheel. So that's the first thing we're going to use. This is going to be such a delightful tasting, as well as a really attractive cocktail. You know, if you want to really make a cocktail seem like it is a super fancy cocktail, and if you want to get top dollar for your cocktails, so much about that is in the presentation. So we are going to make a fancy presentation in this one. We're going to take a lime and an orange, because it does have the triple sec, and that orange doesn't want to stay. And look at that. I mean, this is a cocktail that's going to get the oohs and the ahs. The Caribbean Blue Margarita, and it's a great cocktail to look at. We're not going to taste it just yet, because we have a second margarita to make, and this one is just called the Blue Margarita. So before we make this, what I'm going to do is rinse out my shaker. I'm going to get everything out of this so we're not getting the residual flavor from this. And then we'll be right back for cocktail number 2. And while I'm cleaning up, let me know below, what do you like to do for Cinco de Mayo? Do you have a favorite restaurant or a favorite cocktail? Let me know in the comments. All right, we're all set. So I've got all cleaned out with some fresh ice in there. And this is a much smaller cocktail as far as the volume is concerned. But you can feel free to take the same ratio and simply multiply it. So we're going to use 1.5 ounces of the Blanco tequila. And next we're doing 1 ounce of the blue curacao. So this is just the Blue Margarita. The other was the Caribbean Blue. And this is simply the blue. I'm not touching any of these other ingredients. We're not going to put triple sec. We're not putting any simple syrup. So this is not going to have as much sweetness, but it does have a little bit we'll try that again. A little bit of the orange and a little bit of the sweetness that comes in from that blue curacao. Now, we're also going to use the lime. So I'm just going to use a couple of extra pieces. This is not the main piece of the lime by any means, but I do like to, since we have all these odds and ends from when I cut off the garnish, I'm going to use those, and then I'm going to slice off a garnish for this one before I forget, and then I end up not having a lime wheel. There we go. And then we will use this half as well. So there might be a little more lime in here, but I think it's going to be okay because so much of that is offset by that blue curacao. All right, so now we're going to shake, shake, shake. Now, if you haven't figured it out, I do reduce the shaking time because I think it's boring watching me shake that for 45 seconds or more. And if anybody in their mind or out loud, when I said shake, 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 said shake your booty, no, I'm going to disown you as a viewer. All right, so since there is look at all that salt that's coming off the rim. It's still a highly salted rim, that's fine, but the lime just doesn't make it adhere as well as that corn syrup. So here we go. And I put a lot more ice in this margarita because I knew that the volume was a lot less. All we had was roughly 3 ounces compared to the 5 that we have over there. And it's much more of a traditional looking margarita. But you know, it all comes down to taste. As far as the color, this one has a much richer blue. I don't know if you can see that, but the Caribbean Blue has a much darker blue. I think it's a more attractive color, but this one still has a blue to it, and it's going to look different than a typical margarita that you might serve. So let's give this one a shot. That's good. It doesn't taste a lot different than a traditional margarita. A little sweeter. Little of that orange is coming through, but not much. Well, of course, there's fresh lime in here, and the only orange comes from the blue curacao. It's a good drink. I would say it compares favorably to a standard margarita. I mean, it's got the tequila, it's got lime, it's got the salt. This softens it just a little bit, so maybe you'd consider that to be margarita light. So let's see how the Caribbean Blue margarita stacks up. Oh, this is so good. Surprisingly good. I would have thought that the tequila would have been overtaken by all the sweetness, but it isn't. I'm getting the full tequila. I'm still getting the lime, getting that little tartness of the lime. But there's so many other things going on here because we have the orange from the curacao, the triple sec. We're getting the sugar and the sweetness from the simple syrup. Wow, this is good. If you want to slowly, now it's not going to, knock a traditional margarita out of the competition. This is a variation. It is a different take on a margarita. But if you think margaritas are maybe a little harsh, if a margarita for you is a little too strong, this softens it, but not to the point where, it tastes like soda water. I mean, this is good. Yep. We have a winner here. And it is so attractive. By the way, that's part of it too, because I say this all the time, but our senses all work together. And when you're smelling the lime, you're smelling the orange, it all plays into that flavor, that mix of flavors. Now, I'm not really smelling the cherry. The cherry is purely visual, but how pretty. You got blue, you got green, you got orange, you got red. I mean, this is a treat for the palate and a treat for the eyes. I'm really happy with this. And I'm acting surprised. I shouldn't be because I just had this with the previous video. But boy, it's so good. I think I forgot how surprisingly flavorful that was. Now this tastes drab. It just, nothing. Like I said, margarita light. So I hope you give one of these two a try. Yeah, if you don't typically have blue curacao or triple sec in the house, you might have to go out and buy some things. You buy a lime anyway if you're going to make margaritas. But I think we have a couple of winners here. So please give this a try, and happy Cinco de Mayo.